Hi, and welcome to How to Make a Conflict Disappear. My name's John Rice, and for decades, I've taught a number of ideas and steps, things that you simply have to know if you're not going to get chewed alive by conflict. So many of the things that we've been taught for 600 years in the literature, and oh my goodness, we've been taught to do these things around conflict, and they tend to be ineffective. They tend to make conflicts persist and worsen. We've been taught things like conflict management. You want to manage a hotel or a restaurant because you want to keep it around a conflict. No, conflict resolution, the adversary system, win lose. There's so many things that I refer to as ideas that have failed the test of time. And there's some new ideas that are breakthrough ideas. And I've been sharing them with people in about every setting imaginable. Individuals teaching in businesses, churches, schools, people from all over the world for a long, long time, decades. And I want whoever you are that's watching this, I want you to have this. And I really want this for you and for people you care about. Um, my motivation with this, my wonderful wife and I have had the advantage of these ideas for a long, long time. Been married for over 40 years, and we have a wonderful family. The family and the people I've worked with have had the advantage of these ideas, and I want them for everybody. I assume if you're watching this, you're over 3 years old, and you know it can be really painful to be in a conflict. And as I've been saying, these things are things you just simply have to know to shift a conflict from however severely minus to way, way plus. And what we call way, way plus is the beautiful music possibility. How do you shift something that's best described maybe as noise and pain from that setting to go to something that everyone involved is winning? That moment in life where you figure out, if you and I are in conflict, I'm not going to win unless you do. And how do we do that? I founded the Win-Win Institute decades ago, and I've worked with thousands of people in every kind of conflict you can imagine. Very severe conflicts get sent to me. People that have been involved in legal process and therapy and all of that stuff. And it usually always takes 20, 30 minutes and people are hugging. And I want that for you. And I really, really want that. I don't have words to say it strongly enough. I want it for everybody on the planet. I don't want anything from you. I don't want to be paid for this. I just want you to have available what we've been teaching. Um, One of the disadvantages to teaching a seminar is that somebody has to go someplace to attend it. Fly to my family's hometown in Phoenix. Be welcome to do that. Come knock on the door if you want to talk. We can get around to something like that. Or, I've gone to different places to teach in business and governmental settings, quasi-governmental, teachers, things like that. Um, but now there's this new thing, myself being kind of, as you'll already have gathered, sort of an old guy. There's this new thing called what's the word for it? The internet. And what that allows to happen, if we create a series of videos that comprise this How to Make a Conflict Disappear webinar, this is the first one that we're recording. If we put these together, you can watch them at a time that works for you. You can watch it for 10 minutes and come back to it. You can watch 3 of the videos all in a row if you want, but I want this to be convenient for you and accessible to you. And we're going to be setting it up to have discussion groups so that if you have questions about the ideas and the steps that we present or how to apply them to situations in your life, um, we'll be able to discuss those. It'll be interactive. Will not be a charge for that either. Just want you to know that this is something we've been so, well, it depends how you want to say it in your system. We've been so fortunate. We've been so blessed to have these ideas. And so sharing them is very important to us, especially now we've entered what people call it, our retirement years. My wonderful wife, Jane, just retired from 50 years of being a wonderful trial lawyer. She supervised things for our attorney general here in Arizona, everything juvenile court, aging and adult, child welfare. And then she moved to Maricopa County, which is a county that includes Phoenix, and did some really wonderful property related things. We decided if one of us was going to keep practicing law after we met and married, the other was going to stay home with the children that we had, began having, that the one to continue in practice should be the one who's good at it. That's definitely my wife. People used to call me a brilliant lawyer, and I was, except when I wasn't. But there's that little gap between only being brilliant on your good days and being inspired. And she's that. So I got to be one of the first people called a Mr. Mom. And that also worked for me professionally, because founding the Win-Win Institute and having people come to our home and sit for a while, and we'd talk, and they wouldn't be in conflict anymore. And so it was a thing that could be included in being Mr. Mom, and also really teaching people to be effective around conflict. So that's what we're here for. And I'll give you an idea in this first video of the sort of things we teach. You can call something a conflict or problem. I could introduce someone to you. I feel very certain, whoever you are, that I could tell them, this person I'm going to introduce you to can be kind of a problem. I mean, what human can you not say that of? But it doesn't define what's available in relationship with you, nor in a, quote, conflict or problem. Those are labels. And if you put the labels aside, what you really have is raw materials. And you're going to create something. So if you use the part of you that's creative and so on, rather than reactive, we've lived in a survival-based world. And, it's a win-lose kind of place. So you have to figure out what you need to do to survive. And so you're always looking for the threat. That's what we've all been taught to do. And then to manage the threat as best we can or something. As opposed to what we've seen now available, people have shifted. Having spoken of myself as pretty old at this point, survival's been handled before the Civil War. As I remember, the lifespan was barely over 20 in the United States and approaching 25 in Europe. And now you need to not step out in front of a bus, and there's that sort of thing. But people on average are living a really, really long time. And I think the interest isn't as much in survival now as in thriving. And the rules of a thriving game are very different than the rules of a survival game. So in a thriving game, having everyone in a space win is a thrilling thing. And I have yet to see ever a situation, and I've seen some really, really difficult situations. Work with people who were in prison and a whole lot of other settings, whole neighborhoods that were just kind of at war with each other. And excuse me, and how do you have everyone in a situation like that win at a really profound level? And that's what a thriving game requires. And so the idea is the steps, when you put them together, we consider the results to be something that we refer to as the beautiful music possibility. And what might you create from this life content that's presented itself that would be beautiful music? And when you look at a circumstance that you've encountered, and the first thought in your head is that it's a conflict, I've kind of done a study of this, and the phrase that comes up for a huge number of people when certain content shows up in their life is, and pardon this, but it's, oh shit, like as though we know this is bad. And what we don't know yet is how it's going to work out. This could be the beginning of the miraculous emerging. And yet our minds want to hold, oh, negative. It's as though we're looking through a red filter, and it's like, oh shit, it's red out there, as opposed to put the filter down. You've got raw materials. And if you don't just react to the negative that you think is happening, you might be right that it's negative, but to be sure that it's negative, you'd have to be God. You don't know how this is going to work out. This could be a beautiful thing happening. One of my best friends, and Gene's and my best friends, his name was Richard. And oh my gosh, he's one of those inspiring people I've ever met. He broke his neck in the Peace Corps. He was riding a bicycle along an African dirt road, and his bike hit a stump that was broken off in the road, and the bicycle flipped him over, and he landed on the back of his neck, and he broke his neck. He lay there for 8 hours, mostly in the dark, before he was found. And he was transferred to the big Army hospital in Wiesbaden, and then the Center for Quadriplegia in Denver. And the doctors there told him, you're never going to move from the neck down. And what he concluded immediately, is very passionate human being, he concluded he was going to commit suicide because he wasn't willing to live in that condition. He'd never be able to have children, et cetera, et cetera. And he's a very bright fellow, to understate it. And he said when he made the choice that what he would do next is commit suicide, he's had what he called the cosmic joke that in order to kill himself, he would first have to get better. And the next thought he had was, well, if I'm going to go as far as to somehow get better, I'm going to find some game to play on the other side of it than killing myself. And the game he chose on the spot was I'll dance by New Year's. The doctors insisted he would never move from the neck down. That was just what all the doctors were telling him. But in a fairly short time that passed, he was able to walk again. Doctors walked him out of the hospital. He was rail thin, the most rail thin person I've ever seen as a result of the accident. He had to wear a diaper. He walked very haltingly. He sometimes needed help to get up out of a chair, just as an example. But doctor walked him out of the hospital and showed him the patient's chart. And it said, patient continues to insist he'll walk, and rather than break his spirit, will devote 5 or 10 minutes a day to, quote, rehabilitation. Doctor showed him that on the chart as he walked him out of the hospital, down the steps out of the hospital. And Richard was the most fearless person I've ever known. He could walk into the middle of a biker gang and have a conversation with them about how they might next want to move through life. And he said that he considered the broken neck to have been a phenomenal gift, a blessing to him. And it set his ability up to make a difference in the planet. He felt it was part of his calling. The way he said it was as though he got to sit with God on a cloud before he came to the planet, and God said to him, so what difference do you want to make if I send you there and put you in a human body? And Richard told him, and he said, okay, I will support you in making that difference. That'll be your calling. But of course, the first thing that'll happen when you get to the planet is you have to have an experience of people who are not living in that plus, they're living in minus. And that was what resulted in his broken neck. And I can't imagine anyone having a broken neck and being in a situation like that and not having an oh shit moment, like, oh, this is bad, this is conflict. He considered it for almost the entirety of his life, and until he passed some time ago. But he considered that to have been the miraculous emerging. There was never a conflict element in any element of it. This was his training to be who he hoped to be here. So we look, when we work with people, for, is it possible that there's not only a plus, but way, way to the plus side? How do we discern what that might be? And it isn't what we're usually asked. I wrote a book recently called Win, like WIN, like win-win, windcrafting. And in it, I talk about the young Jesus, that Jesus, and being in a young Jesus in a typical second grade classroom. And the teacher saying to me, we understand, sweetie with a capital S, respectful. Your father wants you to perform miracles, and we really want to encourage you in that. But first, the math worksheets. How do we go about discerning a person's calling, the educational path and the career path that you'd love to follow? And it's not generally what we're asked. If I said to you, can I interest you in a reasonable relationship? You'd have the sense to say, no, I suspect you want more than that in your life. But people take a reasonable job. How do you have your relationships work where everyone is winning at a very profound level? So that's what we're going to be talking about. That's the ideas that we're going to be talking about. One of the ideas is the thing called empowered illusion, where that's what I mean by picking up a filter and looking at something. We see what, in our minds, as smart as we humans can be, we conclude this must be whatever, bad or something. And then we actually live in a manner that's consistent with it being bad, as opposed to at least holding the possibility this might be so plus I'll be thankful that it happened the rest of my life, and where might we take it to get it there? So that's what we teach, how to get to profound levels of winning, and I mean in the presence of any circumstance. So that's what we want for you. That's what this series of videos will be about, this being the first one. In the next of the videos, we'll be talking about a number of the ideas that are so critical, things you just have to know. And then maybe somewhat in that video, but probably in the next one, we'll be talking about the steps that You just have to understand. I mean, we've been taught through 600 years plus of literature that there are 4 steps that you have to follow when you're in conflict. And I mean, everybody's been taught that. And the first step I call the 0 step, and it tends to perpetuate, make conflicts get worse. So there's some things you have to know. These are breakthrough ideas that we've applied the name windcrafting to them. How do you become even a windcrafting professional, but certainly in your life and in dealing with the people you care about? How do you have everyone win in a situation, in a conflict? And we would love to have that happen. I'm sure the old song that was sung, well, let's let there be peace on earth and let it begin with me. But that, for most of us, when we encounter what we've been taught, given what we've been taught, when we encounter something that's a conflict, we have a real difficult time to get to something that's peace on earth. And it can be incredibly destructive, painful. I mean, the damage it causes. Conflicts can cause relationships, relationship with job, I mean, with other folks. I mean, one of the classic things that I've noticed over many decades is what happens, for example, when lawyers and therapists are professionals at conflict resolution, go through their divorces and breakups of their partnerships and things. And oh my God, it can be awful stuff. And these can be wonderful, wonderful people. These have been colleagues and dear friends of mine for years that have gone through this, but given what they've been taught, some of what they go through is absolutely awful. And you see the limitations of what they've been taught. And they're not the only ones to have been taught that. All of us have been taught this. So we're talking about breakthrough ideas that get past all of that and can lead you from minus to plus in such a fast time. And we'll be giving examples of, in the book that I wrote, I give literally, I don't think I talked about all 10,000, nearly 10,000 situations I've worked with, but I might have left 4 out of the book, but they move from minus to plus, and it's just sometimes so shocking in a way, given our history, and so beautiful to see people move from noise, clanging, bad, whatever, to beautiful music. Want that for you, excited to share it with you, thrilled, and I hope you can hang with us and go through this and even interact with us, join some of the interactive programs if you're moved to do so. And or come to Phoenix. We still do things personally. You can knock on the door. So I wish we could be sitting down on a couple of couches opposite each other and talking, and maybe we'll get the opportunity to do that. I've done that with so many people, and I'd love to be talking with you one-to-one personally, but I'm very thankful for the fact that I can give this to you in a video form, and I hope it will serve you and well be as much of a blessing to you as it has been to me and to the people that I love and care about. So I'm going to complete this first video with these words, just saying that wish you well, hope we can get to know one another over time, but more importantly, that you can learn what you need to learn to just get past being in conflict in your life and help others to it when you care about them and when you care about how they're doing in a conflict. Hope this can make you be very, very useful to the people around you as well as to yourself. And I mean, even with internal conflicts, any kind of conflict. So we can say for the moment, to be continued.